Hey, soccer fans, this is Nick back with the Feed the Fire podcast where we're talking the Chicago Fire and Major League Soccer. And we're also talking a little bit of the Major League Soccer postseason where the Chicago Fire are going for the first time since 2017 and where they look to win a postseason game for the first time since 2009. Yeah, not been kind to Chicago over the recent years, but we are back. That has been the story for the Fire over the last week or so. Forget about that draw. Forget about that terrible result against Toronto at home over the weekend. We are focused on the playoffs and just maybe a little bit focused on a 7 seed. It's possible, and we're going to take a look at it in just a few short minutes. We've got to talk about a couple games. We've got to talk about that Miami match. We've got to talk about the TFC game. We're going to look at the standings, and then we've just got some headlines around the league that if you want to have a conversation about Major League Soccer, things that you just got to know. So make sure you listen to the entire episode. But before we dive into all of the good stuff, remember, go out to your local 7-Eleven, buy a bottle or 3 of Skira Icelandic Spring Water. Skira is a sponsor of the show. They have taken care of us. They have supported us. They've helped me get new equipment. They've helped me get some funds in to upgrade some of our software here. So big thanks to Skira Icelandic Spring Water, as well as their featured guest, John Donovan, as he comes on the show when he is able. John, need to hear your thoughts about the Chicago Fire making the playoffs. So send me a recording, man. We got to get something going here. But also, before we dive in, I want to do some kind of postseason thanks, just real quick. It's not going to be very long. We did have the Fire's last regular season home match of the season this past weekend against Toronto. And I just really wanted to shout out to Maddie Coyne, my season ticket rep. She has been an absolutely fantastic person to work with in the Chicago Fire organization. Always looking out for me and my family, helping me get extra tickets when I need it, helping me move some tickets around, making sure that we're well taken care of, always taking the time to say hello to the kids and talk to them a little bit, talk a little ball with me as well. She has been phenomenal. If anyone is interested in getting involved with the Chicago Fire at the season ticket membership level, reach out to me. I'll put you in touch with Maddie. You can email me, glasshousesoccer@gmail.com, or you can find me on social media at glasshousesoccer. Also, I wanted to say thank you to all the supporters groups who have been so welcoming for all the tailgates. I am not a member of a supporters group. I have no intention of joining a supporters group. I can't make that kind of commitment. But I love everything that you all do, and thank you for being there each and every match, especially getting to see Alan Krilikowski, the pole with a goal, sound the alarm against TFC. I think he was having more fun than anyone else in that stadium at that moment, and it was phenomenal to see. One other kind of quick recognition that I do want to give is to everyone out there who's been covering Major League Soccer this season, not just the Chicago guys here. We know Men in Red 97. It's always good to chat with Joe Chats. It's always good to see Joe Chats at OnTap Sportsnet, Tim Hatza, Alex Calabrese, guys who always will stop and take a minute to say hi and chat a little bit, as well as everyone else who works for Men in Red 97 and OnTap Sportsnet. CHGO Fire, Alex Campbell, it's been great getting to know you more this season as well. Thank you to all the fans who have written in, who have interacted with me through email, social media, who tune in, who listen. You guys are the reason why we have so much fun throughout the season and throughout doing the show. Finally, a cool little other recognition I want to give. Edgar over at News Across the Galaxy Nags put together a great group of MLS independent content creators. So Edgar, thank you for bringing me into that group, for having some great conversations with people covering every team in the league here. I got to shout out the Battered Herons down in Miami. They do really good work. Always have a lot of fun talking with them. And after our show, I got an email, not from any of those guys, but from none other than Miami defender Noah Allen's mother, who is Greek, and I recognized that, gave it a shout out on their show, and she sent me an email saying thank you so much for recognizing Noah, for giving him a shout out and being so supportive of him. And from what I understand and talking to the guys at Battered Herons, like Noah's parents interact with the show, they buy swag from them, like they are like all in on interacting with fans as well. So something very, very cool to see. it's been phenomenal. I've had the great opportunity of exchanging emails with Noah Allen's mom. I think I had exchanged Twitter messages with Kellen Acosta's mom at the beginning of the season, and even Philip Zinkernagel's dad sent me a message on Twitter. So to all of you all who have interacted with me, especially those three, thank you so much. It's been so much fun being able to talk soccer, not just with fans in Chicago, but people all over the world. All right, let's get right back into the good stuff here on the show. That Miami game may have been one of the most thrilling matches that I have ever watched the Chicago Fire play. It was incredible. 8 goals scored. The Fire give up two goal leads and still come away with the win in the end. Now, one of the storylines coming out of it is who are the players for the Fire that stepped up and made the big plays in the biggest moment, or as Tyler Terrence said, the biggest game in the Chicago Fire club's history, getting back to the playoffs for the first time in so long. It was the homegrowns. That is one of the storylines to come out of this. In the second half, you saw how well those subs played, and who are the 2 goal scorers to put the Fire ahead and seal it? It was Justin Reynolds with a great far post run. It was Gutierrez to set up the play, dishes it out wide to Pineda, another homegrown, plays it across the front of the goal to Reynolds, taps it in back post. So you had your 3 homegrowns who have been playing spectacular for you this season, who've done everything you've asked of them all season. Those 3 link up for the goal that puts Chicago back in the postseason. And then, of course, to seal the deal, it's everyone's hometown favorite, Brian Gutierrez, with just another rocket of a shot to seal the deal and just send the Miami fans home crying. I don't think it's going to get out there because people love Messi too much. But man, if someone could come up with a sad Messi meme or the sad Messi gif, because the TV crew did the right thing. They focused on Gutierrez and the Fire, and he celebrated, and then boom, they went right to Miami, and you just saw Messi's face, just like how did he do? Are we losing to these guys? Like the look on his face of just like sadness and shock after all the work they did to claw back. Again, being down 2 goals twice, the Fire went up 2-0 behind Jay Davila's 11th minute goal and Jonathan Dean megging the keeper. And of course, celebrating by letting everybody know he's got a baby on the way. Congrats to the Dean family. Many, many blessings to you. Good luck with everything there. But then it was Tomas Aviles who gets one back in the 39th minute, and the Fire but the Fire then regain the lead with a Kwame goal in the 43rd. Guys who have not been getting regular minutes all season, all of a sudden are stepping up in this game. So the Fire going to halftime 3-1. You're thinking, okay, this is good, but we know how good Miami can be. We know that they are going to just need an inch of space or a minute's time in order to put some goals up, and that's what they get. They get 2 goals from Luis Suarez in the 57th and the 74th, and at this point, a lot of Fire fans are thinking deja vu all over again, collapsing the last 2-3 weeks of the season. Red Bulls are you always got one eye on Red Bulls to see if they're going to win their game and jump the Fire and knock us out of the playoffs. But this is a different Fire team, and we have seen moments of that throughout the season. Yeah, they had that disappointing terrible loss in Nashville, but then they bounced back the following week and win. They have defeated Charlotte. I think they defeated Charlotte both times this season, a team who has been playing insanely well this year and climbed up, I think, to 5th in the table. You saw how at the beginning of the season, the first game, the opening game of the season, when it's the first time they're playing out of the back, you've got so many mistakes from the defensive side of the ball leading to Columbus goals, and the Fire go down 4-2 in that first match, but yet they continue to come back and work and hone their craft. There have been so many moments this season that are moments that playoff teams and trophy-winning teams can hearken back to when they get into a tough spot in an elimination match, in a wild card game or a play-in game, in a 3-game first round, in a knockout game in the playoffs. The Chicago Fire, and especially Berhalter and the coaching staff, will have so many moments to go back to this season and say, guys, we're up a goal in our play-in match against Columbus, let's say. Keep on it. Keep the pressure up. Here's how we're going to continue to win this game, just like we did in this game where, guys, we're down a goal. We're down 2 goals. We need something. Or we're level at halftime. Here are the changes we're going to make. And you saw a little in the Toronto game of a bit of a formation, not really a formation change, but a few guys maybe playing a little outside their position to get them a little used to that for the playoffs in case they need to change things around, if they need to get desperate and go for it. So a lot of moments this season the Chicago Fire can draw on to be resilient in the playoffs. And this Miami game is probably the one in the most recent history that they can do that. So the Fire end up with a 5-3 win. I didn't know if they would come out in the usual 3-back system. The MLS soccer.com recap does show them as playing a 3-back system with very high wingbacks as attackers. So in this lineup, you had Chris Brady in goal, Andrew Gutman, Jack Elliott, and Joel Waterman along your back line. Your 4 midfielders, Romanique Kwame, Jay Davila, Andre Franco, and Jonathan Bamba. You also had your attacking trio of Haile Selassie, Kuipers, and Jonathan Dean. But again, you got to remember, Dean and Selassie in defense are dropping back to make it a 5-man back line. Or if one of them is pushing up so high, the other one's got to kind of feel the moment. And this is what I like about Berhalter and how he coaches. Yes, there's a system. Yes, there's things you need to do in the system. There's set passes. There's pre-drawn up. There's passes you have to make when you're playing in his system. But he gives his players the freedom to maybe do a little improvisation from that, break away a little bit in the right moments. So when you see Jonathan Dean bombing up the right-hand side, Selassie knows, look, if we've got numbers, then let's press the attack. Or he knows in a moment, if we've got numbers, maybe I should hang back and prevent a counterattack, depending on who's pushing up and where. So flexibility in the system there, which is great. And then, of course, we saw a lot of subs in this game. Zinkernagel coming in, Pineda, Acosta, Gutierrez, Reynolds, everyone coming in, resting some of these legs for the end of the season there. Now, looking at the stats on this Miami game, and again, there were some spectacular goals. Go back and watch the highlights. Chicago only ended up with about 41% possession, not even. 11 shots, 6 on goal, and 2 blocked shots. Meanwhile, Miami was just peppering the net. 24 shots, 11 on goal, and 4 shots blocked. They were attacking during so much of this game. The Fire defense they played well enough to win on this one, I'll say. It's rare you give up 3 goals and come away with a win, but they did enough in this one. And here's the other thing. 406 passes for the Fire, 82% passing accuracy. Miami had 689 passes at an 89% completion rate. That is unheard of. That might be the single best passing statistics I have ever seen in an MLS match. I don't have the database to go check that, but if someone out there does, please go do it. The Fire took 2 corners, 1 cross, 2 offside. They had an XG of 2.5, so they ended up with 5 goals. That Gutierrez one, I don't know what the XG is on that, but it had to have been pretty low. But again, the Fire actually getting the most out of their opportunities here. 8 saves credited to Brady. He was working hard. 13 clearances for the defense, along with 9 fouls and 3 yellow cards. And so that was the Miami match. That victory sealed the Red Bulls' fate and the Fire's fate. Fire making the playoffs, or the postseason, depending on how you look at the play-in game, if you consider that to be the playoffs. It's postseason play. You're eliminated if you lose. It's the playoffs. Call it the playoffs. And then we can debate whether 9 teams should make the playoffs. I think that's the bigger question. But that's what locked the Chicago Fire in. They had enough points. Red Bull lost, couldn't catch them. And that is all she wrote as far as the last team to clinch in the Eastern Conference. So we know the teams in the East. We have the 9 teams in the East. We'll go over that in a second. But now it's just a matter of positioning. And the Fire didn't really do a lot to help themselves win or gain better playoff seeding and positioning in this match against Toronto. Now, Toronto, interesting story here. They've had turnover on coaches. They've had turnover on players. You got Robin Fraser coming in. And since Chicago's playing Toronto, this is my time once again to say how much I dislike Robin Fraser for disparaging Greek people, saying we are not a minority ethnic group, should not be considered that. And also I just think he's overrated as a coach too. That's all I got to say about it. But Toronto, interesting coming in. Toronto comes into this fire match. Sorry, I had to regain my thoughts there for a second. Toronto comes into this fire match 7 straight 1-1 draws. Not just 7 straight draws. 7 straight draws where the scoreline is 1-1. And at least they didn't do that again. It was a 2-2 draw in Chicago on this one. And this is, I don't want to call it the Jack Elliott game, but it might as well be called the Jack Elliott game because he had 3 of the 4 goals on the day. Unfortunately, the first one was an own goal. It just doesn't get his body positioning right when he is trying to make a slide. And what sucks is that the Fire were playing so well in the first 20 minutes or so of this match. And they have a corner kick, and when I see Richie Larea take the clearance of the corner kick and counter and just run the entire length of the left side of the pitch, I'm just thinking, oh, this is going to be one of those classic against the run of play, set piece counter goals. Please. Yeah, I just had that feeling, and I did not think it was going to be on an own goal. But yeah, Jack Elliott does slide, get down, intercepts the pass across the middle, and unfortunately, though, doesn't get his body positioning right. Puts it right in the near post, past Chris Brady there. So the Fire go down 1-0 on an own goal in the 27th. But Jack Elliott, and again, here's one of those moments where we can look, where the coaching staff might want to say, look at that Toronto game. You guys didn't give up. And it was the player who made the mistake, Jack Elliott, who comes back and gets 2 goals. Jack Elliott with a brace, 71st minute, 89th minute. Now, unfortunately, Bamba gives up the penalty kick late in the game. Mihailovic, of course, it had to be Jordy Mihailovic to beat the Fire, right, guys? Or it felt like a loss. To get that last goal to equalize against the Fire. Mihailovic takes the PK low and hard just to Chris Brady's right. Brady reads it perfectly, gets down, makes the save, but with his extension, it looked like the ball kind of hit him in the thigh hip area rather than in the chest or stomach where he could have cradled it, and it just squeaked out. Credit to Jordy Mihailovic, who as soon as he hit that PK, follows his shot and taps in the rebound. So just, again, 2 horrible ways to give up goals by the Fire. Toronto played a decent game. I'll give them credit for it. This was a very physical game. And it's one of those times where I think in years past, the Chicago Fire probably would have picked up a red card in a game like this, if not a couple more yellow cards. The Fire ended up with 2 yellow cards. Toronto also earning 2 yellow cards in this match. But it could have been a lot worse. There was a lot of physical play. The referee let a lot of it go, but, some of it he probably should have called earlier to keep under control and to set the tone rather than letting it go and then trying to call the fouls later. Yeah, what can you say? You also, if you want to look at the ref, and I hate talking about officials because at the end of the day, it's the players who decide the games. The referee may have missed that handball. I don't know if anyone brought that up yet if you were able to find the clip, if there was a handball against Toronto in the box or 2 maybe. But anyway, I also kind of expected the Fire to drop off just a little bit after that big Miami win, clinching the playoffs. You heard Greg Berhalter say it post-game, we need to celebrate this, but we also got to be ready for Toronto. So it's kind of hard to get a team in that dual mentality of, guys, we got the monkey off our back, 8 years without making the playoffs. We finally do it. Hurry up, we got to go beat a Toronto team on a short week. A physical Toronto team, a fast Toronto team. I forgot DeAndre Kerr was only 22 years old. That man's a speedy forward and a solid dude, too. So he was putting up quite a fight with the Chicago Fire defenders there. So it's hard to kind of have that dual mentality, and especially with the amount of soccer the Fire played. And you saw at the end of that Miami game, you saw Kuipers was just exhausted, and along with everyone else, because they went for it. I talked about it on the podcast. I expected them to go all out and win that Miami game in order to make the playoffs. They weren't going to leave it to chance these last 2 games of the season, and they did. They went all out there. And when you got to about the 75th minute of this Toronto game, you could see the effects of that it was a little bit slower. The passes weren't as sharp or as crisp or as accurate as games in the past had been. Again, Chicago had an 85% passing accuracy. I think a lot of those were in the defensive or middle third of the field. They had a total of 546 passes with 55% possession. But again, that only translated to 12 shots, 6 on goal. So yeah, a lot of the passes were in, I want to say, defensive or middle third of the field. I wonder if anyone's tracking turnovers, if that's a viable stat to track here, because there were a lot of turnovers on both teams this game. Finishing off the stats, Fire had 4 blocked shots, 8 corners. They finished the Frank. Still waiting for my email from the team. Get that Portillo's hot dog. Honestly, I was with my daughter. We were both beat. We went to our sons back to back. We had three youth soccer games this weekend. 2 on Saturday, 1 on Sunday in the heat. So we were wiped. So we left about the 80th minute, and we got out of the parking lot fine. We got down the highway just fine. And I said, let's go get some Portillo's. I should have that email from the club by now. Did not have it. Waited 25 minutes in line at the Portillo's drive-thru. I don't know what's going on with the Portillo's on Dundee and Arlington Heights, but waited 25 minutes in line to get a few hot dogs. That was the longest part of the night by far. But anyway, enough about the corner kicks and my late-night snacking habits, which, if my doctor's listening, just ignore that. Anyway, 2 total crosses for the Fire. They won the aerial duel battle 9-7, but only 0.7 or 9-6, but only 0.7 expected goals. So those 2 goals that Jack Elliott scored were very low percentage opportunities. So the Fire weren't creating a lot in this match. Brady's credited with 3 saves, defense given 9 clearances, 14 fouls, and again 2 yellow cards there. Now the Fire for this Toronto matchup again went with their 3-man backline. This time they get Sam Rogers back from yellow card suspension. So they were able to play 3 true center backs in Rogers, Elliott, and Waterman. Brady starting in that, of course. You had a mix-up in the midfield. They definitely were, I don't want to call it rotating, because these are guys who have all started matches this season for the Fire, and not just spot starts. They've started a number of matches this season, but as you saw, Andre Franco and Jay Davila have kind of taken over that starting midfield role. Sadly, Andre Franco with the torn ACL will no longer be a part of the Chicago Fire's on the field plans. I really do hope they extend the loan or make the deal permanent, depending on how his rehab is going. I don't know how quickly he's having surgery, though for a pro athlete, you want to do it quickly because you need to rehab as soon as you can. An ACL injury can take anywhere from 9 to 12 months to be fully rehabbed and ready to go. I think those freak athletes who are incredible physical specimens and who have some of the best doctors and trainers, and hey, Fire have a brand new training facility, right? Can do it, maybe 7 to 9 months or so. So we're looking at a long return, a long time before Andre Franco can return at 100% fitness. And really after the surgery and you start your rehab, the doctors will tell you, physically, you're good to go. You do need to train and rebuild the muscle that was cut and while the surgery was going on. But hopefully with new procedures and techniques and tools and things, it's as minimally invasive as possible to reconstruct an ACL. So he's going to have to build up a lot of muscle in that leg. But, after a month or so, he's physically fine. It's your mental preparedness that's going to be the hard part to recover from an ACL tear, because you've been so ginger on that leg for so long. Your brain knows you had that injury, and it subconsciously protects yourself. Your cuts aren't as sharp. You're not going 100% in some of your drills. And it can be a difficult thing to come back from mentally as well. I'm sure Franco is going to be surrounded with some of the best people in the business to help him get back to 100% fitness. Hopefully it's closer to that 6 or 7 month mark than that 11, 12 month mark, and he can have an impact for this team, because we saw how well not only he played, but how much better everyone else around him played. His off-the-ball movement really opened up space for Jay Davila to drive forward, but his vision also gave Kuipers a lot of the great service that he had been lacking last season as well. So plus he would get Bamba involved, Zinker. I mean, he was able to find anyone who was open and make the right pass. So the loan hopefully gets extended, if not made permanent, so that the Fire can really cash in, figuratively and literally, on this great player. But again, back to the Toronto lineup here. We did see Gutierrez, Orahel, and Pineda get the start again, along with Maran Haile Selassie, those four guys in the middle there. And then we had Gutman pushing up high, Zinkernagel pushing up high in the wings, and Kuipers as your striker. We did get appearances from Joe Bamba, Jay Davila, Romanique Kwame, and Jonathan Dean and Tom Barlow as well. There was a little tiny bit of a hiccup, I'll call it, a little hiccup on Twitter about, is Bamba worth the price tag? The one person put it out there, it was like, I don't think he's worth it, and every reply was, he's absolutely worth it. He may not be showing up on the goals statistics here, he may not be scoring or getting as many assists as we'd like, but for his first season in MLS, he played extremely well. He is exactly the kind of winger that this club was looking for when they signed him. He is a guy who stretches defenses, takes guys one-on-one, makes defenses play on their back heel. He is the outlet when the defense and the midfield is in trouble. He's one of those guys who can relieve pressure. Okay, he gave up a bad foul for a penalty that cost the Fire a couple points late in the game. Yeah, but he is. I don't think Bamba should have been playing defense in that box anyway. But everything he brings to this team on the field is extremely valuable. 5 goals and 10 assists. Like, when have we had a Fire player hit double-digit assists in a while? That's wild. So 5 goals, 10 assists, pretty good for your first year in MLS. Now, yeah, is it worthy of a DP tag? Relative to a lot of the other DPs, probably not. But here's the thing you got to remember with the Chicago Fire. Their DPs aren't exactly the focus of the team. They have a system that they want to play, and they're getting the best players for it. So Kuipers he's top 10 in the league in goals scored. Zinkernagel, possibly going to win Newcomer of the Year, probably an MVP finalist. Gutierrez stepped up his game. We got Franco, Davila all stepping up in their game as well. Everything took a leap forward here. So for Joe Bamba to quote-unquote only have 5 goals, 10 assists, I mean, you got to look at his impact on the team as a whole. And early on in the season, he was the guy that was producing in those first 3-4 matches. So without him, the Fire don't get off to as good of a start as they did. So I think the negative talk about Joe Bamba needs to stop if it even started at all. In addition, you got to look at his off-the-field stuff. The Fire go after high-character guys. Here's a guy who is playing in League One, who won a title in League One a few years back, and comes to MLS. He could have said, I'm here for the paycheck, I'm going to take it easy. But no. He's a guy who had his downtime, who slumped a little bit, who was replaced in the starting lineup for a number of matches, who could have just said, fine, whatever, I'll come off the bench, I got my paycheck. Nope, he worked back into the starting lineup. He's been a good teammate, he's been a mentor, all these things, leader in the locker room and on the field, all these things. So the Joe Bamba signing, absolutely worth it. And since we're talking about individual player numbers, something to look at for Brian Gutierrez as well. Again, same type of guy who was the starter, was the face of the franchise, and then gets kind of relegated to a bench role, super sub role. I don't want to call him a super sub, but, maybe an extended sub role in favor of Davila or Franco. But a guy who last season said, I want 15 goals and assists. That's my benchmark. He ended up with 9, 6 goals and 3 assists. So he did not meet his individual benchmark last season. We saw just how poor that team was constructed and just the lack of any sort of cohesion, coaching, planning, or whatever that really affected Gutierrez. We also saw the lack of confidence in Gutierrez. And we know when this kid has confidence, he strikes the ball well. He sees the field better. The game slows down. His touches are better. And you saw him get that confidence back this season to the tune of 9 goals, 6 assists. So he hit his benchmark that he set for himself last season. So now Fire fans, Gutierrez is going to have to raise the bar again for himself. And by the way, he did that this season, 24 starts in 28 matches played. Last season, he only had 9 goal contributions, 26 starts, 32 appearances. So in less time, he had a bigger impact, had a better season statistically, and probably just all around. So now he's going to have to set himself a higher goal for next season, assuming he's here. But we'll get into all the transfer speculation in the offseason. But you saw Gutierrez with that banger of a goal against Miami from, what was that, like 25 yards out or something? When he has the confidence, he's going to pull the trigger. And that's what you want to see from your attacking midfielder. And that's what you want to see from an organization who's on the up. Your young players playing with confidence. So with that draw against Toronto, we have, again, the 9 teams in the East who have clinched their playoff spots. Philly, Cincinnati, Miami, and Charlotte are your top 4. New York City, Nashville, and Orlando are currently 5 through 7. And Chicago, Columbus at 8 and 9 in the play-in game. The Fire are sitting on 52 points. So 1 game to play. The Fire playing the Revolution at New England next weekend. While the Revs have really nothing to play for other than pride, other than showing, whoever's going to come in and kind of change that team in the offseason, who they are and what they're capable of. They're not going to be able to change their spot in the standings. They're in 11th on 35 points. They have no shot at doing anything postseason-wise. So we'll see how they run this team out. Meanwhile, Chicago, 52 points in the 8th spot. They're 1 ahead of Columbus. They're 1 behind Orlando, 2 behind Nashville, and 4 behind New York City. So the Fire cannot get to the 5 spot. But if the Fire beat the Revolution, end the season on 55 points, if Nashville loses, and who are they playing? If Nashville loses their match to Miami, it's a home match in Nashville to Miami, and if Orlando draws or loses their next match, an away game to Toronto, they've got 2 matches left. So Orlando's got a game in hand on the Fire. They're at home against Vancouver and at Toronto. So Orlando, it's going to be really difficult for the Fire to jump Orlando City. And Columbus's final game here on the season is at home against Red Bulls. Again, a team that doesn't have anything to play for other than pride and passion here. So, assuming Columbus draws, let's assume the Fire win this game and they end up on 55 points. If Nashville loses, the Fire will jump Nashville. If Orlando has 2 draws, the Fire will advance on the first tiebreaker, which is number of wins. Right now, the Fire have 1 more win than Orlando. And if Columbus, as long as Chicago wins, they will stay ahead of Columbus. So there is a chance for the Fire to jump up into that 6th spot, depending on the outcome of Nashville and Orlando. There's also a chance that nothing changes. That 6, 7, 8, 9 is Nashville, Orlando, Chicago, Columbus. So something to watch this weekend. Now that's all for the game recaps. That's all for the standings, the playoffs. Just a few headlines out there that we got to get out of the way again so you can stay up to date in your MLS discussion groups here. Jack Elliott was named to the team of the match day for his 2-goal performance against Toronto. Let's see if anyone else. Chris Brady and Philip Zinkernagel were named to the bench for the team of the match day as well. Their next matchup against the Revolution actually is going to be in a couple weeks, it looks like, if I am reading this correctly. Yep, on October 18th because of a quick international break here. So the Fire will have some time to rest up, and they'll be able to hopefully take 3 at New England, maybe move up the table a little bit more. Another Chicago Fire organizational headline, Jason Shukaluk wins the Golden Boot for MLS Next Pro with Chicago Fire 2. He scored 20 goals in 22 matches Last season, it was David Pareba who had 18 goals, giving him the Golden Boot. So CF2 now has back-to-back Golden Boot winners. So it'll be great to see the competition between Shukaluk and Pareba. Hopefully he's back from his ACL tear in the beginning of the season, and the two of them can compete to see who's going to back up Kuipers, or potentially, I don't know, maybe mix it up and get a little bit of wing time, maybe a little bit of attacking mid time, depending on what Greg Berhalter tinkers with a little bit in the offseason. We'll see. But we've got some great young strikers coming up. Next headline, with their latest victory, the Philadelphia Union have clinched the Supporters Shield. So congrats to the Union with their 1-0 victory over New York City over the weekend. They clinched the Supporters Shield. How many? I keep closing tabs here as I go through my headlines. Let me reopen the standings one. They've got 66 points right now. The closest anyone else is to them right now is Cincinnati. But with one game to play, there's no way Cincy can catch them. So Philadelphia Union, despite getting rid of their coach, despite doubling down on a youth movement and trying to find, I don't know, maybe they're the Moneyball team of MLS right now. Despite all the changes over there, despite me doubting it, the Philadelphia Union end up with the Supporters Shield, another trophy in their case. Congrats to the Union on that one. There was also some news for San Diego here. Let me go find that headline. San Diego becomes the first expansion team to hit 60 points. So congrats to San Diego, who had a 4-2 victory over the Houston Dynamo in their latest matchup. So that is just, we're seeing how well expansion teams are coming into the league. San Diego playing so well, they are probably going to end up top of the Eastern Conference, depending on Vancouver and Minnesota these last couple games. Right now, they do lead the Western Conference. They have 60 points. They own the tiebreaker with Vancouver. They have one more win, but Vancouver has a much bigger goal differential. So if they tied on wins, then Vancouver will get the tiebreaker, the second tiebreaker there. So San Diego has the great expansion season. St. Louis had a great expansion season. Atlanta had their great expansion season. Like, the way teams are approaching Major League Soccer coming into the league, it's phenomenal. Now the question is, how much more expansion are we going to get? Again, another great postseason or off-season topic to talk about. Also, if you're following the Golden Boot race, right now it's Messi at the helm, 24 goals, 17 assists. Bouanga in the second spot, 24 goals, 8 assists. Sam Surridge finishing out the top three, 23 goals, 5 assists. Hugo Kuipers down, tied for 8th with Alonso Martinez. They both have 17 goals and 2 assists. So hopefully he can bag a couple against New England, maybe jump up a little bit further. His MVP opponent, if you will, Anders Dreyer, 17 goals, 18 assists. So great season for the San Diego newcomer. A guy that the Fire targeted but couldn't get the deal done. He ended up in San Diego. I mean, imagine the Chicago Fire right now with Jonathan Bamba, Philip Zinkernagel, and Anders Dreyer as your 3 wingers on the team. That would be insane. But looking at his season, Bradley Wright Phillips writes on MLSsoccer.com. His pick for MVP is Anders Dreyer. And his pick for newcomer of the year, Philip Zinkernagel. Now, it's potential that Dreyer wins both, but hopefully they spread the love a little bit, or recognize what Zinkernagel had to do with the Chicago team to get them back in the playoffs. 14 goals, 13 assists in 29 matches. So Bradley Wright Phillips also gives a shout to Son Heung-min because of his 8 goals and 3 assists since joining MLS. But I'd rather take the player that's been here the full year and helps a Chicago team make the playoffs. Last couple of headlines here really quick. Speaking of Zinkernagel, his 29 goal contributions now are the most goal contributions in a single season in Chicago Fire history. So that last number I read from Bradley Wright Phillips may have been from an article prior to some of those other numbers. But yeah, 29 goal contributions, best single season in Chicago Fire history. Congrats to Zink on that one. Final headline, more MLS news. Columbus Crew midfielder and MLS legend Darlington Nagbe is retiring after the 2025 MLS season, per sources as reported by Tom Bogert. Nagbe is 35 years old. He has won an MLS Cup at every club he has played at: Portland in 2015, Atlanta in 2018, and 2 with Columbus in 2020 and 2023. Arguably the greatest midfielder in MLS history. Great player for the U.S. men's national team, at 25 caps for them. This is something where Crew fans are really going to have to see what their team does next season, because you've built so much around Nagbe. How are they going to fill that gap? Do they have a young midfielder coming up? You saw Aiden Morris possibly doing that, but they ended up transferring him overseas and collecting that transfer fee, which, I'm not knocking that move by any means. Everyone was happy with that one. But how are they going to handle the future in Columbus? That's what we're going to have to wait and see. All right, folks, thank you all again so much for tuning in, for watching, listening. Please like, subscribe, rate, review, share the show, retweet, retag, resend, whatever you need to do to keep moving the Feed the Fire podcast up those algorithms that are out there. Looking forward to seeing you all as hopefully the Chicago Fire will be hosting a postseason match. Keep that 8th spot. They'll get a postseason match. If they move into that 7th spot, they'll get a postseason match, even though it'll be 1 in that first round series of 3. Fingers crossed. I'd say pray to God for that, but from my experience, God's not much of a sports fan. But anyway, fans, thanks again, and let's go Fire.